Hello, Pretty Storytellers! Welcome to Pretty Stories, and just to quickly cut to the chase, yes, I am aware that autistic coding is all around media, even to the point where there's an entire wiki page about these type of headcanons. Like, what the actual Personally, as someone who is proudly on the autism spectrum, as I always saw my autism as a huge aspect of my childhood, and the kind of person I grew up to be today, I honestly kind of see the whole concept of autistic coding as not offensive, just a silly and stupid way to normalize autism, as just any old body who's shown to be really smart and or shy, tend to speak with a monotone voice, is fixated with a certain interest, doesn't get certain social cues and or emotions. The list just goes on. Something that I just recently learned from Introduction of Critical Disability Studies is a term coined by Stella Young, and just so I don't get age restricted, we will just be calling this term inspiration pity instead of that other P word, if you know what I mean. Inspiration pity is defined as the objectification of people with disabilities to use them as a sort of motivation for people without disability, where in reality, we should be no different than the rest of you. A personal example of mine has to do with my current position with the Alvin and the Chipmunk fanbase. As before I was revealed to have autism, Simon acted like a total egocentric joke to me, and the rest of the fanbase are just as dense in the head as he was. Once I said that I am autistic, one of my haters in the Chipmunk fanbase, who we will still be leaving anonymous, all of a sudden likes me and wants to be my friend after saying all those nasty things about me, to which that kind of energy as a whole seems really fake to me, since I grew up with autism for my entire life, as thus nothing has changed about me from before to today. Because being openly autistic shouldn't change the type of person I am, because I'd rather be around people who like me for me, not because I have autism. Which leads us to the type of inspiration pity called Autistic-Coding, which is simply defined as using autistic traits to headcanon someone being on the spectrum. And while there are unfortunately so many autistic-coded characters to choose from all across our media, in this video we will only be minimizing the autistic-coded characters list to the Winx Club franchise, with two of our main victims for autistic-coding goes to Tecna from the original Winx Club series and Musa from the live-action Fate the Winx Saga. If any of you people have more autistic-coded, or better yet, canon autistic representations you want me to analyze as someone on the autism spectrum, please let me know. But for now, let's dive deep into analyzing the autistic coding of the Winx Club franchise. So Winx Club is an Italian show with characters inspired by 6 American celebrities of the 2000s, about a group of fairy warriors who gain new magical powers each season to defeat the forces of evil, while growing into stronger fairies from inside out. But really, it's about a little white girl named Bloom who develops into a screen-hugging Mary Sue over time, but still. The show Winx Club for me is okay. I probably didn't grow up with the nostalgia goggle anyone else has for this show, especially the 4Kids stuff if you're an American viewer. All that I remember from my past with Winx Club is that my older sister used to watch this show back when it was on Nickelodeon, and I think she even named her late pet Goldfish after Aisha. Coincidentally, this is the same sister who also got me into watching the Tinkerbell movies and Fairly Odd Parents. Guess you could say my sister had a thing for fairies back then. And yeah, even today, while both the newer seasons and even the older seasons, which are fan favorites, are not my cup of tea, I still love looking back at the series and watching what I like to call the Winxtuber community, such as, and not limited to, Unicorn of War, Rosie Vision, and Lisa Verrill, who are basically keeping the Winx franchise alive with their content, as I love following with what they gotta say about the show more than I like to and follow the key points of the actual show. Cause honestly, my favorite part about Winx Club and any fantasy as a whole is the world building of it. Even if I'm not a fan of the whole sci-fi aspect of the show. Yeah, you heard what I say. Very unpopular opinion. Call me a nature boomer as you wish about traditional fairies. I get it if that what made Winx Club stood out from all the other fairy fantasies, but as someone who is currently developing her own fairy fantasy novel called Spirit of the Crystal Ball, based off my Royal High character Princess Briella, I understand fans who grew up on the golden era of Winx Club being a fan of the hybrid world of sci-fi and fantasy, but for me, the sci-fi and technology aspect throughout the first few seasons seemed really forced to me, just to separate the Winx world from typical fairy world without any pure intelligence and thought. Just...
You look disappointed.
Of course I'm disappointed. This is it? Magic's? Capital of the realm of magic, most enchanted city in the universe?
Well, what did you expect?
I don't know. Dragons, gnomes, wizards, shops full of magic wands.
But that's fairy tale stuff. This is the real world. Here, everything lives off its own magical energy.
My heavy belief on what is to be considered a traditional fairy, once again mainly due to my sister's interest, was so strong that if someone were to tell my younger self that there was such thing as a fairy of technology, especially one that is a main character of a television show, I would most likely think that you are high on that pixie dust. I know it's not a very positive way to introduce our first victim of autistic-coding, but we have Tecna, everybody! Fairy of technology. The only Winx Club fairies who bonded Pixie act exactly like them instead of contrasting, cause who gives a hoot about Developing Tecna past Season 3? Even though the Pixie were introduced in Season 2 and the wise could literally give Tecna the Pixie of emotions or the Pixie of feelings, to better have a Pixie that contrasts her and thus support her arc and development like the Wisdom Winx, but who kept about Tecna really, since buying the Fairy of Technology with the Pixie of Nanotechnology. So creative, you guys. She's the brains of the club who thinks things through logically and have a hard time expressing her emotions at the beginning of the series due to her home world being completely devoid of emotion.
We have to keep going.
Tecna, I'm dying here, and you don't even care.
But I do care. I care a lot.
Tecna, I was just kidding.
I'm sorry if I seem cold. At home on Zenith, people don't show their emotions.
And despite us seeing this wonderful side of Tecna and how she grows into a fairy who is able to be more open with her friends and emotions, later finding the choice to save the magical universe over losing the emotion she gains and her love life to be one of the most sacrificial things she ever has to decide in her lifetime. And then Nickelodeon completely rebooted the new season into a preschool show and either made her and the Winx a hive mind or just fertilized Tecna into a smart techno nerd.
Okay, This is your new cell. It's pre-programmed, internet-enabled, and magic compatible. And you won't believe the apps!
So now that I gave a quick introduction of Tecna in canon, let's dive into the Autistic-Coding of her as quoted from the Autistic Characters wiki page, as well as debunking some of the theories and claims that leads into the fan's perspective of our good old Tecna.
At least Tecna is the kind of autistic that's good at computers and stuff.
As to quote from the wiki article, Tecna from Winx Club is frequently headcanon as autistic. Some reasons for this includes she has a noticeably knowledgeable and logical personality. Her attachment to technology is sometimes seen as a special interest, and is sometimes seen as info dumping. In addition, Tecna often struggles with emotional management as well as expressing her emotions and is generally perceived as having low empathy. Lastly, in some seasons, her voice sounds like a computer and comes off as flat. All of the above leading fans to believe that she may be autistic. Okay, so let's just start with the easiest claim to debunk I listed from this article, which is Tecna having a flat and monotone voice. It was pretty obvious that this writer was referring to the Cinema dub, where most of the voice acting, especially in the first season, were very mediocre, and she wasn't the only flat monotone voice acting that was done in the season.
Come here, I'll smash you like a China doll!
Oh no!
Also, the in-universe claim for her voice sounding like a computer. We'll combine this claim as well as the logical personality and low empathy claims together for last. The next claim is her special interest in technology, which is such a tired stereotype when it comes to the autistic community, as people need to understand that not everyone on the spectrum is into technology and vice versa. Meaning that just because you're smart and into technology doesn't make you autistic. Personally, I do like to use technology if it means watching YouTube or editing videos, but I usually see technology as a subgenre to my main passion, being storytelling, not just technology alone. Plus, you can probably name a handful of people who has a special interest in technology that are not autistic. Like, what? Do any of these people think that anyone who wants to major in technology is guaranteed, like, without a doubt, they have to be autistic? Yeah, no. The next claim is info dumping, which...
Snake rat? Let me consult my database. Snake rats. Swamp creatures of the disgustabilis genies. They eat toads.
Thank you, Tecna. We get the picture.
Ionic particles that you generate will be catalyzed, Stella.
Say that again.
Never mind. Let's just say I'm making your job easier.
And trees grow their fruit way up high to keep them from predators.
I have no clue what you're talking about.
Okay, so Tecna's info dumping is what made her a useful aspect of the club, while they, especially Stella, may not appreciate it. So I'm just gonna take a lazy one out on this one by doing what I've done with her voice, sounding like a computer, and combine to the final claims this writer pointed out, which the in-canon explanation would reveal why I personally feel like it would be a terrible idea to make Tecna be autistic in canon. Which leads us to the final claims of Tecna's logical personality and low empathy / trouble expressing emotions.
No. Tecna, are those tears I see in your eyes?
No, a speck of dust got in my eye.
From the start of the series, we all know that Tecna's logical personality and struggles with emotions is a part of her character and development of the first 3 seasons. But as the clip that I shown earlier explained, it was revealed in canon that she was raised in her homeworld Zenith to always put logic above feelings. So technically, this is like saying the entire planet of Zenith are all neurodivergent, which in canon would just be garbage representation given how Zenith was only introduced in season 5, cause who cares about Tecna that we only get to see this goddamn planet for 3 episodes. But Zenith, compared to the rest of Winx realms, if you don't count Curse Domino, is portrayed more like a cold dystopia, similar to that of The Giver or 1984, both novels I had to read at school by the way. Well, everyone is so dependent on technology and rationality to the point where Tecna made a Cyrenix wish that everyone on Zenith feels more connected instead of, I don't know, doing it yourself. One of the things that make this even more of a negative portrayal of autism if it were canon is on how the only main 2 times we get to see Zenith is on a shallow negative light that Stella witches about, if you know what I mean for kids fans, and the other Winx tolerates like a hive mind.
It's freezing here.
Well, Zenith's climate is calibrated to maximize the functioning of our techno-droids.
Huh? Ooh, tastes like homework.
Well, of course. That's the point.
Due to our main showcases of Zenith being shown in the Nickelodeon era of Winx Club, big red flag over there, the only reasons we are shoved into Zenith is to convince the king to join the Magic's alliance or whatever, and meet Tecna's parents who are drier than sandpaper, just to get the typical meet the boyfriend subplot and get the Magic MacGuffin Loca whatsits. Jeez, how fun.
Flashback.
Solaria!
Linfia, it's so good to be home. Oh.
Cool! The water stairway, that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. The Black Willow!
Dad!
Musa, daughter, welcome, Winx.
End of flashback.
Oh, tastes like homework.
It's also not helping that Unicorn of War or Thomas Red Carlo portrayal of Zenith in his or their rewrite. I'm sorry if you see this as me being insensitive to pronouns, but I'm just gonna go with his he, him pronouns for this analysis. So on his season 6 rewrite, Zenith is seen as more dystopian in comparison to the original. And no, this is not me trying to insult Thomas and his work, especially since he's actually my favorite Winx tuber of all time, and I love what he did in expanding Zenith's world that the original couldn't do. But if some of the fans are going to headcanon Tecna as autistic, they need to know that most of her quote-unquote autistic traits came from her dystopia of a planet.
Her teacher called saying she brought a toy with her to school, a stuffed dog that talks when you squeeze its hand. Tecna explains that it's hard for her to focus without Snowball, confusing her parents until they realize she's actually named the toy. When her parents ask for a concrete reason as to why she needs the bear, Tecna can't answer, unable to explain herself. Magnethia moves to grab Snowball, but Tecna swats her hand away and picks him up. Electronio scolds her, trying to take it away from her, but Tecna fights back, running back to her room and barricading the door. Her parents are exhausted, but agree they need to do something.
Rewinding back to her development is where we've seen that during the courses of the first 3 seasons, Tecna learns to grow out of her main autistic-coded traits, such as low empathy and trouble expressing emotions according to the article, and began to start putting what may seem to be logical aside just to learn to let go of her feelings and become emotionally vulnerable with her friends. Just a minor nitpick I got from Tecna's developmental arc in season 1 through 3 is that we never really get to see her have any individualized friendships with the other Winx that better support her development. Since any Winx Club fan knows that Bloom and Stella were like the OG besties from day one, no explaining there. And Musa and Laisha, wait, Laisha? Pretty name, I'm not gonna lie. It's either that or Isla. And just so you Winx fans know, yes, I am aware that Aisha is her original name before the third-party English dub changed her name to Layla, but just to stand out more for the other Winx Club analysts, I'm just gonna go with the nickname Laisha. Got it? Good. So Musa and Laisha also became close due to both their independent and loner attitudes, I can also relate, and each goal balancing each other out in their arcs they've encountered, especially in the second season. Even Flora and Laisha became close individually when Laisha helped out Flora in discovering if her crush Helia is thinking of her through breaking and entering, but still, they're fairies. And even told Flora to get out her shyness and talk to the Mr. Logcat bot! We never really get to see any of those individualized Winx bond when it came to the development of Tecna, especially since, well, to put it nicely, the Winx Club treats her like shit.
Now that worries me.
Yeah, it shows. The sad news has obviously upset you.
Well, by Tecna's standards, she's actually shown too much emotion.
I know. Ever since I met you guys, I easily lose control. It wasn't a joke.
I wish I'd laughed more.
Me too.
The most closest bond we got out of Tecna's development will have to be her relationship with Timmy, also what Winx fans know to be the most stable and less problematic couple out of the entire franchise, which can also be due to their lack of screen time, but still. Even if I am personally not like a huge devoted super fan of any of the Winx couples as I am with other ships from different shows, the relationship between Tecna and Timmy did help Tecna showcase more of her deepest emotions that at first she wanted to hide through what she learned and taught on her homeworld. But through Timmy is where she learns to let go of her emotions through crying for the very first time, as well as resenting having all of those feelings that she gained be taken away. Even if another nitpick to add to that nitpick is on how our adult Timmy, along with the rest of the specialists, apart from maybe Sky, barely gets any characterization apart from being all the Winx's boyfriend by coincidence, and minor trivial facts such as Helia being Headmaster Saladin's grandnephew. Yes, I'm combining both of the dubs once again. So as much as we all love Timmy, you can basically replace him with Red Paint for Tecna's developmental art and it will be like nothing has changed at all. No hate to Tecna and Timmy though, I still love them. Which means that if we just ignore Tecna's randomizations in the newer seasons and just follow through the OG Winx fans' beliefs that the true ending of Winx Club is either Season 3, The Secret of the Lost Kingdom movie, or Season 4, We are finally going to conclude the Autistic-Coding with Tecna with the basic statement that it's cool if people still code Tecna into being autistic. There was no harm when it comes to fan theories. But while analyzing Tecna's whole characterization and development of the first 3 seasons, that apart from being just the nerd of the group, most of her growth in those seasons go against those autistic stereotypes that the wiki page preceded as evidence. So as a person with autism, ironically, I would be highly against if the producers decide to make Tecna be autistic in canon, because not only will it seem like they are doing this out of fan service, but honestly, it would be better now diversity representation if we stray away from the nerd equals autistic stereotype. By having Tecna's wit, courage, and intelligence be outside of a neurological condition, as we will all just love Tecna for Tecna. Fate the Winx Saga, known for its controversial whitewashing of Knopfler and parsing the Napoleon Musa, tacky old woman fashion sense that make OG sell over to a deathbed, and the unfortunate removal of Tecna despite being the only British representation, well in 4K she was, in a show where everyone apart from Bloom is British now. And our main target for Autistic-Coding is now dead, with none of the producers giving an actual care about being faithful to the original Winx Club. Wait, so if Tecna is gone in Fate the Winx Saga, why am I still talking about Autistic-Coding in the Winx Club franchise? Well, that is because during my time recently forcing myself to get through the now cancelled after 2-season live-action adaptation of Winx Club on Netflix, that taught the OG Winx fans to be careful what they wish for when asking for Winx Club to be more mature again after it shifted into a preschool show on Nick Jr. in season 7, was not it. And so we got Fate, and I really do apologize for not having the nostalgia goggles of the animated Winx Club aside from my sister watching the series way back when it was on Nickelodeon. And I also just remember at this moment playing Starsuit.net, which is a dress-up website my sister most liked to play when we were kids. And Chibi Winx music has always been my favorite gameplay due to the background music being Walks Out by Miley Cyrus, which is the song I grew super fond of as a kid, ever since I first heard it in this game, but still off topic since that doesn't count. I honestly think that Fate the Winx Saga is moderate. And I'm probably one of those people who think that Fate would have been a much better show if it was a dark fantasy series on its own instead of trying to catch in with the Winx franchise, despite many changes to the original. But we're not here to analyze the entire Fate series, we are only here to analyze the old Winx character that got adapted to be considered autistic-coded to the fans, Musa. Just to catch you guys up upon the franchise, Musa from the animated series is the Fairy of Music, who is a very skilled and talented musician and singer who always puts up a tough tomboyish front to cover up her emotional vulnerability of being a loner and losing her mom at a young age. Not only did I end up getting Musa on the Winx quiz from the official English website, but ever since I first saw Musa, which would be way back when I was just a little kid constantly playing Chibi Winx Musa on one of my sister's favorite websites at the time, I just knew that Musa would be the type of fairy with a lot of complexities and missed opportunities. Since music and sound is such a powerful and universal, timeless, and ancient form of communication that is just a versatile and wondrous aspect of the world. Musa's original character even inspired me to create a character for my own dream fantasy novel that I will be bringing up more towards in the end. Her name is Hinna, and she is the Fairy of Nocturnes, which is a musical composition inspired by the night. She is Tibetan-coded and a mute fairy from Orbuculum, whose main form of communication is through music, especially her piano. And despite Hinna's disability, Princess Briella, who is a bit younger than her, always views her as the dream fairy with a sparkly and beautiful appearance inside and out. But due to Musa unfortunately being one of the 2 unpopular Winx girls alongside Tecna, we never really dive deeper to what could be a really complex character who can teach us the deeper aspects of raw music, and just have her be a highlight of all the other Winx with Flame the White's traits who potentially is individualized, then yeah, that's not how it works. Now, if we all just skip the whole East Asian coded to white controversial change, Musa in Fate the Winx Saga got a new power source to fit in with the dark and edgy fantasy genre, as Musa is now a mind fairy who can feel emotions and listen to others' thoughts, memories, and dreams. She is portrayed to be self-isolated and a bit of a loner, similar to the classic Musa, but with her adaptive sensory powers and how from the first time I saw this cafeteria scene, Musa absorbing a full crowd of people in her point of view. Not only is this an experience I can still relate with today whenever I'm in a full crowd, minus the mind powers, but it was at that moment where I knew that Fate's Musa will be our next target for Autistic-Coding in the Winx franchise.
My magic's pretty much always on. Makes crowded spaces a nightmare. Doris is in physical pain. That kid? Scared and stressed, like a bunny when hawks circle. Worried and tentative. But that might just be heartburn. It's hard to tell a lot of them apart.
In this article called Neurodiversity, Changelings, and What Fate the Winx Saga Can Teach About Acceptance, I just love how in-depth this source was, as you can tell that it was written by a neurodivergent writer, especially in comparison to the autistic character wiki for Tecna, which can just be summed up in bullet points that all combines to autism equals smart. Here, we get a more deeper analysis on the autistic coding in Fate for both Musa and Bloom. Despite us both being neurodivergents, I know that the writer identifies herself more with Bloom while I personally identify myself more with Musa. But just to keep all the autistic coding brief, we will only be covering Musa's part from this source. Okay, so to quote from this section called Musa, Autism, Empathy, and Sensory Processing Disorders, Musa's struggles with her magic empathic abilities closely mirrors the actual experiences of many autistic people, as well as other neurodivergent people who experience sensory processing disorders and or heightened sense of empathy. Musa's relationship with other characters also add depth to her experiences of disability and humanizes neurodivergence in compelling ways. Musa's roommate, Naflor, initially accuses Musa as being insensitive and self-centered because she won't socialize with her and wears her noise-blocking headphones in the room. Musa's empathy then backfires on her in a very typically autistic way when Musa senses and reacts not to the emotions that Naflor is projecting outwards, feelings of anger to Musa, but to the deeper anxieties about social isolation which Naflor feels within herself. As Naflor begins to learn through her interactions with Musa, it's not that Musa is selfish or can't empathize with her, it's that Musa is able to empathize with her and other people on such a deep level, she has to limit when she can be fully vulnerable to that empathy. When comparing all of the Fate Musa's bullet points for her autistic coding from the Autistic Woman and Non-Binary Network source that dives into more of the sensory and empathetic depths written by someone who is experienced with the autism spectrum, in contrast to the original Winx Club Tecna's bullet points for her autistic coding from the Autistic Characters Wiki, which only features shallow, negative, and problematically outdated traits such as info dumping, speaking like a computer, and displaying low empathy, which is quite the opposing case for our next Winx victim, who is literally titled as an empath and have her inner mind powers and struggles that she can barely just automatically change for herself be the strongest force to her autistic coding. And not something outer like having a strong interest with technology or basically not knowing how to human, which is a line I stole from Thomas Vicalo, since once again Tecna was raised to exhibit some of those stereotypical traits, and not everyone on the autism spectrum will have that special interest for something, and I'm pretty much repeating myself, am I? So similar to what we done for the 5 bullet points for Tecna, we will start out our first bullet point for Fate's Musa, short and simple, with her wearing noise blocking headphones in order to get a break and silence her heightened senses, which is very common within neurodivergence. Trust me, I've been there.
30 seconds, please. At least let me get my headphones.
I know many people on the spectrum uses noise-canceling headphones to silence their selective hearing, while I personally remember showing off this trick I usually do to miniature and soften my hearing by first yawning, and then taking either my finger or my arm to put across my nose and then take a quick deep breath like this. I'm doing it off camera. Whenever I done this little trick, many people think that I am sneezing whenever I try my best to hide that from others, and I can totally empathize, get it, on how Musa's headphones symbolizes a comfort safe spot to take a break from absorbing the complex and intense emotions of others. By isolating her own thoughts through her sensory headphones, as to quote from the Winx Saga novel, The Fairy's Path, I just adore the line where it says, "She reached for her headphones like a drowning person reaching for a life vest." Not only does this extra detail from the novel shows how essential her headphones are to her personally, but even though I am not the type to wear noise-canceling headphones, I do always need to take a break to isolate myself through music, art, or writing, as not having that break time to myself is what caused my graduation party, yes, my graduation party, to be the worst party of my entire life. The full story will be coming somewhat soon, as I'm just one page away from finishing the story. And many others can highly identify the need to be closed off in your own little world, with people misjudging this kind of action as insensitive and rude, especially during a conversation, where in reality, most people on the spectrum uses noise-canceling headphones to avoid loud or chaotic auditorial sensories, and what makes her arc more unique out of the two autistic-coded Winx girls is that unlike Tecna, where you can make the claim that anyone who grew up on Zenith or wields Tecna magic shares those exact traits on the wiki page, except to a more extreme degree, Musa is the only mind fairy or fairy that we see wearing sensory headphones, which better yet defeats the claim that I made about Tecna, since Musa putting on her headphones to avoid a sensory overload is a trait that is unique to her, not any other mind fairy in this universe, and noticing this tiny detail inside her story is such a really great detail for an autistic-coded character once you realize it in that way. The next claim for this article will be a combination of her asocial tendencies and how her deep level of empathy is misunderstood as selfishness. Why I connect these two bullet points together is due to the fact that the outside cause of our last claim of Musa wearing noise-canceling headphones to take a break of listening to everyone's thoughts and emotions will eventually lead to people such as Naflora view her as antisocial and apathetic, well, that's not the case at all. It was similar to that scene from the animated series where Stella, being the Flanderwise brat she is in the later seasons, accuses Tecna of not caring, but I think it honestly works better here since it follows more of a show don't tell rule. And the subtlety with Naflora's chatty and cheerful eagerness to make friends being an exterior cover-up for her hidden insecurities be the perfect balance to support this message of understanding from both sides, with the main turning point of her arc being when, after she got suggested to use her mind powers to absorb some of Sam's pain, she got traumatized of feeling what her mother felt as she was dying, which is honestly some hardcore stuff that would have been really interesting if they would have explored more of Musa's mother's death in Fate apart from this one and only scene as they did in the animated series. As she quotes, "She could never feel someone she loves die."
I can't feel it. I can't feel somebody I care about die. Not again. What? Musa. My mum died last year, Terra. And I was with her and I felt it the moment it happened. I felt everything she felt. That's why I can't talk about my family. And that's why I can't be with Sam now. I can't feel it. Please don't make me feel it. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not gonna let him die.
If you look past their race, the acting between Elliot and Alicia is so powerful. As after Musa decided to put her headphones back on to finally let go of her fear through her deep level of empathy that she felt through her former love interest Sam, by deciding to follow through their connection by bringing in some of his pain away to continue succeeding in the healing process. which afterwards makes Musa known to be one of the most powerful and gifted mind fairies in the entire other world. But when she tries and grows to be more social and use her mind powers and empathy for reasons that will appear less selfish, such as taking away her friends and even her boyfriend's negative energy away like she done earlier with taking away Sam's pain from the burned one. No matter how much she thinks she's helping people do her magic, Musa began to start seeing her gifted mind powers more of a curse later in her arc, as we now need to ask ourselves, should Musa be defined by the autistic-coded magic she was born with, or should Musa be defined by who she is alone as a character with the life goal she has chosen for herself? The final claims to conclude the Autistic-Coding of Fate the Winx Saga's Musa will be a combination of a heightened sense of empathy and sensory processing. The reason for this is that we pretty much cover most of Musa's heightened sense of empathy on the empathizes on deep level is misunderstood by selfishness bullet point. And focusing on the sensory processing for Musa's character is as much of the central principle for autistic coding as it is for Tecna's logical personality. Which means we will use this area to conclude Musa's autistic coding and her ending in season 2, so spoiler warning. Just to recap who she is according to the Fairy's Path novel once again, Musa is an introvert who keeps to herself so her mind isn't overwhelmed by the emotions of those around her. Her relationship with Sam symbolizes a quiet and safe sensory box such as the one I would usually have back at elementary school called Brittany's break box. As during the time where Musa is seen struggling with always having to listen to everyone's intense emotions, that she had to leave the room on multiple occasions to cool down by either being alone with her headphones or being around the presence of cool-minded and calm Sam Harvey, with Musa even describing his mind as the absence of chaos. And when she brings in Sam's pain instead of pushing it away as the line,
I think it's your time to take some peace from me,
subtly expresses how Sam acts as a sort of comfort for Musa before he started to feel anger towards the new headmistress Rosalind and her actions. Musa decided to take some of Sam's anger away in order to bring less chaos to his mind, as well as to continue being Musa's source of peace in both their minds, ended up backfiring due to this causing Sam's anger to build up with him, explaining to Musa that not only is he not a killer, but the fact that he even knows that he's Musa's absence of chaos from when they first met gave him a huge role and responsibility, as if he acts more like a social worker or a therapist rather than a boyfriend.
Remember when we met?
Of course.
You said I sounded like the absence of chaos. It's kind of a lot to throw on someone you've just met.
When Musa discovered that Sam was completely clear about leaving Althea, that was when Musa and Sam decided to break up out of good terms. Partially due to losing her absence of chaos and the main person that could make her feel less overwhelmed with her struggling with her mind magic, as she was beginning to see her gifted powers as less of a blessing and more of a curse. Before she even lost her powers, she did have a nice conversation with one of the specialists, Dane, as he advised Musa to try to get out of her head by openly sharing on how specialist training helps him do so, which is why his mind was so crystal clear at practice. It was because at training, to quote from Dane, you don't think, you don't feel, you just do, which encouraged Musa to put her past dancing skills to great use by joining the specialist once she became powerless. Another line I like is that during practice where Musa and Riven are taking a break from specialist training together in the middle of the field, Musa points out that she can see that the rest of the specialists hate them for blocking the field, but she is so relieved that she doesn't have to hear it anymore. Now, similar to what the article said about how most of her autistic-coded is represented by not her mind magic, but her struggles with the mind magic she was born with. Just to see Musa branching out in a new activity, even without her powers, just to clear her mind is so relatable for me. As despite my main interest being in writing or storytelling, I just officially became a student athlete at my university for women's rowing a couple of weeks ago, and I'm so excited for it. Now, if only if we could have seen Tecna find a different interest outside of technology. I mean, yes, I know that her title is Tecna, Fairy of Technology, but even in the golden era of Winx, the producers could have at least shown and not tell Tecna finding new interests outside of technology, such as reading a book or touching grass for crying out loud. Please don't come at me, Tecna stands. I still love your girl, and I heavily believe that this is the writing's fault, not hers.
In this scene in Season 2, Episode 13, Tecna gets mad at Teammate for only talking about technology stuff with her and getting her a gift that's for her computer and not her, which is like, what do you like besides technology? She expects Timmy to know, but does anyone? Did we get much to go off of?
Also, I really love how Musa and Weaven's dynamic in the second season feels less like a client and a therapist and more as equals who are gradually caring and trusting of one another due to slow-burning romance in an activity where she will not be defined by her cognitive disability coded magic, but instead as a healthy activity to get out of her head. As what Dane said, she doesn't have to think or feel anything. All she has to do is just do. Top that off with me just be a little sucker for couples or ships knowing how to have fun with each other without knowing that they are actually falling in love with each other. As Musa and Weaven's chemistry, especially towards the end, is just so breathtaking to how much Musa grows to finally live her life without her headphones or clouded mind, of focusing on the limitations of her autistic-coded mind powers. As I actually find Fate the Winx Saga's Musa and Weaven to be way more enjoyable than how the original Musa and Weaven were portrayed in the animated series. I know I can't be the only one! But since Fate the Winx Saga ended up getting cancelled from just its second season, typical Netflix, this is all we get to see of not only Fate's Musa and Weaven, but Musa's overall development arc as a whole, leading us to the final conclusion of the Autistic-Coding of Fate the Winx Saga's Musa. So to conclude our final Winx Autistic-Coding victim of Fate the Winx Saga's Musa, well, what else can I say that I haven't said before? You can pretty much tell that despite the article sharing specific details on Musa's autistic coding in Season 1, I decided to add even more qualities based on my own personal experiences on the spectrum, as Musa and the article alone by the Autistic Woman and Non-Binary Network has got to be the most relatable autistic coding I have seen till date, and I find it really empowering how we see Musa go from an introverted and self-isolated mind fairy who always needs to be comforted through her noise-cancelling headphones to reduce the sensory overload of observing everyone's intense thoughts and emotions, due to her more recently haunting memory of feeling what her mother felt as she was dying in the same room as her, to a now more approachable young woman who uses her former dance skills to train as a specialist to free her mind, thus reducing her struggling stigma and defining herself not by the limitations of her autistic-coded magic, but the life she had chosen for herself and who she is, and drew both her strengths from both her autistic-coded magic and her capabilities as a full-fledged fairy or specialist. Something that I would like to mention at the end before I end the analysis here is to make the connection between our two autistic-coded Winx, as I find it interesting that according to the articles, Tecna's autistic coding is based off her logical personality and technological skills off a narrow typical perspective, while Fate's Musa's autistic coding is based off her sensory process and empathetic skills off a narrow divergent perspective. Just in case if I wasn't being clear throughout this whole analysis, Musa from Fate the Winx Saga is just a better autistic-coded representation, since Tecna's reasons for being autistic-coded just falls into so many myths and shallow stereotypes that everyone who has autism is smart and emotionless. Well, Tecna is already a great character just the way she is, and can't be all those things or grow out those things in Season 2 and 3 without being on the spectrum. So I swear, and this is coming from an autistic perspective once again, if any of these writers decide to make Tecna be autistic in canon for the new 3D reboot or Season 9, whatever you like to call it, all I'm gonna say is, don't. Meanwhile, say all you want about Fate the Winx Saga being a boring and cliche young adult adaptation that was ironically unfaithful to the original Winx Club, hence its cancellation, one of my personal saving graces, and probably everyone else's, is Musa's characterization. and how it wasn't her mind magic that made her fit into the autistic-coded category. It was her mind magic struggles, and as someone who has been diagnosed with autism ever since I was 3 years old, as my mom, I can honestly relate more with this kind of overwhelming stigma in her arc and her overall growth of her story. Even though I am aware that Fate the Winx Saga is cancelled now, I would love for the upcoming reboot or ninth season of Winx to blend in more with both the Winx Club and Fate the Winx Saga's lore while making her still East Asian coded, of course, as a compromise to make the OG Winx fans happy as well by having Musa's hidden mind powers be connected to the type of adaptive power she gains as a guardian fairy of her home realm. As she quotes that she could heal all the music in the world, even the secret songs in each person's heart. So it would be really interesting to have Musa's music and sound-based magic be expanded by having the power to listen to everyone's thoughts and emotions in the form of a song or music. Which means that the more chaotic and destructive emotions are in that person's mind, the more off-balance and discoordinated the song will be in her mind. But that's all coming from me, so who knows? Maybe it will not happen. Or maybe it will. Anyways, that'll be all for this analysis, and I hope you enjoy my personal take on the autistic coding of the Winx Club franchise, as someone who grew up on the spectrum. As the main 2 article sources I used will be in the links down below. Oh, and also the reason why I said that from the beginning, just in case you don't watch my gameplays, that I'll be discussing more of my Royal High original character, Princess Briella, near the end for her story, Spirit of Crystal Ball, is due to the fact that I decided to make her a canonically autistic representation, which will be more subtle and won't be like a huge shove-in-your-face deal when it comes to the novel in general, as people with autism can just live as normal protagonists in the story, but instead of just making Briella be autistic just because of myths such as she's intellectually smart and can never show emotion for the life of her, or she info dumps a lot, which can we please get rid of the word out of the dictionary, since the term info dumping for me for the autistic community is like the start with N, ends with R word for the black community. But instead, Briella will exhibit some traits for me, which makes sense because she's my Royal High character after all, such as needing to pace around an area to regain her thoughts, or isolating herself at her favorite places of her home while Obuculum, such as staring at the stars at Obuculum's graveyard, which will bring further symbolism to the novel, so I'm just gonna stop myself before I give too much away. But back to concluding the Winx Club autistic coding analysis. If any of you want me to debunk or support any more autistic coding characters from franchises and have this be like a whole little series of mine, just send me all your sources down in the comments and I'll be more than glad to analyze more autistic coded characters from different franchises, just so I can get an idea of what all of you think. But anyways, oh my god, I just realized this is actually the very first time I scripted the ending for these kinds of only voiceovers analysis. So, what should I say now? Oh, I got it! I am Brittany Hill from Britisolias, closing this case off, and I hope to see you next time.